Deep in the untamed jungle, where civilization's reach had long since faded, stood a dilapidated wooden hut priced at just $2. For Eliza Morgan, an architect fleeing the suffocating grip of city life, it seemed like the perfect escape. What she couldn't know was that beneath those rotting floorboards lay a secret buried for generations. As her renovation began, a loose board revealed a hidden compartment containing weathered papers, strange artifacts, and something that defied explanation. With each item she unearthed, the hut's dark history began to surface, weaving a tale far more sinister than she could have imagined. What if the ridiculously low price wasn't luck, but someone's desperate attempt to pass on a burden? Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The Chicago skyline pierced the evening sky as Eliza Morgan stared out from her 27th floor apartment window. Rain streaked across the glass, distorting the city lights into watery smears. Behind her, the sleek, minimalist apartment was already half-packed into boxes. Eliza's fingers traced the worn brass edges of her grandfather's compass that sat on the windowsill, the only personal item still displayed. The needle spun erratically whenever she picked it up, as though even it couldn't find true north anymore. You're absolutely certain about this? Dr. Hartman had asked during their final therapy session yesterday. Selling your apartment? Quitting your position at Wilson & Crane? Eliza had nodded, remembering the panic attack that had sent her to the bathroom floor during last month's client presentation. The fourth one this year. The human mind wasn't designed for this, she told Dr. Hartman, gesturing vaguely toward the window. The concrete, the noise, the constant pressure. Her phone buzzed with a text from Marcus, her now former boss. Reconsider. Partnership track. Don't throw away 10 years. She didn't respond. Instead, she opened her laptop and checked the confirmation email again. Property deed, Le 7729, historic dwelling, Tanjung region. Purchase price $2. Status completed $2. Less than a cup of coffee from the shop downstairs. The listing had appeared during one of her late-night internet spirals, searching for escape routes from her increasingly suffocating life. The photos showed a simple wooden structure nestled in dense greenery. Historic jungle dwelling with renovation potential, the description read. The price had seemed like a glitch. Yet here was the deed, legally transferred to her name. You've lost your mind, her sister Kate had declared when Eliza showed her the purchase. That's literally a shack in the middle of nowhere. There's probably no running water, no electricity. That's the point, Eliza had interrupted. Her phone rang. Kate again, I'm outside. Let me in, her sister said without preamble. Minutes later, Kate surveyed the boxes with hands on her hips. So you're really doing this? I really am. Mum thinks you're having a nervous breakdown. Eliza laughed, the sound hollow even to her own ears. Maybe I am. But if so, it's been a decade in the making. Kate picked up the compass, watching the needle spin. What if you hate it there? What if it's dangerous? Then I'll come back, Eliza said, taking the compass and carefully wrapping it in tissue paper. But I have to try. That night, Eliza sat cross-legged on her bare mattress, scrolling through the meager information she'd found about Tanjung. Small village, remote, accessible by regional flights, followed by local transport. The nearest city with modern amenities was 4 hours away. Perfect. The next morning dawned grey and cold. Her rideshare arrived at 5:30 a.m. The driver eyed her single suitcase. That's all you're bringing. Eliza nodded, tucking her carry-on bag closer. It contained her laptop, essential documents, the compass, and her architectural toolkit, measuring instruments, specialized drawing tools, and a handcrafted set of pencils from her first professional project. At the airport, she checked her phone one last time before boarding. 17 messages, 3 voicemails, 2 emails from Marcus with increasingly generous offers to return. She powered off the phone and slipped it into her bag. The boarding call came. Eliza joined the line, passport and boarding pass in hand. A businessman behind her complained loudly about the flight's limited business class. A family corralled energetic children. Normal people with normal concerns, heading to normal destinations. And then there was Eliza, walking away from a six-figure salary, a prestigious career, and the life she'd spent a decade building, all for a $2 hut whose pictures might have been taken in the 1980s. As she settled into her seat by the window, she removed the compass from her bag. In the artificial environment of the pressurized cabin, the needle finally stopped its frantic spinning and pointed steadily in one direction. Eliza smiled for what felt like the first time in years. "Everything okay, miss?" the flight attendant asked, pausing beside her row. "Yes," Eliza said, watching as Chicago's skyline grew smaller through the window. "Everything's finally okay." The engines roared to life, and the plane began its journey across the tarmac. Eliza closed her eyes and took a deep breath. 20 hours, 3 flights, and a lifetime away. A jungle hut waited for her. And beneath its floors, though she didn't know it yet, something else waited too. Kai refused to enter the hut. "I wait here," he said, settling onto a fallen log at the edge of the clearing. "Call if you need." Eliza approached the structure alone, each step releasing small clouds of insects from the overgrown vegetation. The wooden steps to the porch creaked ominously under her weight. The door, hanging crookedly on rusted hinges, swung open at her touch. The interior was a single large room, dimly lit by sunlight, filtering through grimy windows and gaps in the walls. Dust motes danced in the light beams. The air inside smelled of mold, rotting wood, and something else. Paper, perhaps, and old chemicals. Despite the decay, the space had a certain charm. High ceilings with exposed beams, wide plank flooring, warped in places from moisture. A stone fireplace dominated one wall. Simple furniture remained, a desk, a chair, a metal-framed bed stripped to its rusted springs. Shelves sagging under the weight of deteriorating books. This had been someone's home once, and recently enough that these remnants remained. Not ancient history, but not current either. Eliza set down her backpack and began a systematic evaluation of the structure. Her architect's training took over as she assessed load-bearing walls, checked for termite damage, and examined the roof's integrity from inside. The hut needed work. Substantial work, but the bones were surprisingly sound. The craftsmanship spoke of care and knowledge. "Whoever built you knew what they were doing," she murmured to the walls. A movement caught her eye, something small and bright on the floor near the desk, reflecting a sunbeam. Eliza bent down to find a brass magnifying glass, its lens miraculously unbroken. She wiped away decades of grime with her thumb, revealing elegantly engraved initials, J. H. James Henderson. John Henderson, the mysterious doctor who had abandoned this place. The desk drawers were swollen shut from humidity. Eliza worked the largest one open with patience and force. Inside, she found a leather-bound notebook, its pages fused together by time and damp. As she lifted it out, the brittle cover cracked and several loose pages fluttered to the floor. The handwriting was faded but legible in parts, local guides increasingly reluctant. Superstition or genuine concern? Site appears to predate any known civilization in the region. Carbon dating impossible without equipment. Patterns consistent with my previous findings in Sumatra. Locals refused to translate certain symbols. The date at the top of one fragment read, May 17, 1962. Eliza carefully gathered the fragments and placed them on the desk with the magnifying glass. She would need better light to decipher more. A thorough inspection of the remaining furniture yielded little else of interest. The bookshelves held scientific journals from the 1950s and early 60s, mostly rotted beyond readability. A metal trunk contained moldy clothing and basic expedition supplies. As the afternoon waned, Eliza's attention turned to the floor. Something about it had been bothering her professional eye. The planks were wide and rough-cut, typical of rural construction, but certain sections didn't match the pattern. Near the center of the room, a rectangular area roughly 6 by 8 feet had planks running perpendicular to the rest. She knelt and ran her hands over the anomalous section. The wood felt different here, smoother, newer. Pressing down, she noted more give than in the surrounding floor. Everything okay? Kai called from outside. Yes, she replied, distracted by her discovery. Just looking around. Using a flathead screwdriver from her toolkit, Eliza probed between the boards. One moved slightly. She worked the tool into the gap and levered upward. The plank lifted reluctantly, revealing darkness beneath. Kai, she called. Do you have a flashlight? He appeared in the doorway but wouldn't cross the threshold. What you find? Not sure yet. She held out her hand for his flashlight. Reluctantly, he passed it over, careful not to step inside. Be careful. Some things better not to find. Eliza switched on the light and aimed it into the gap. The beam revealed a small space between the floor and the ground beneath. Not a natural crawl space, but something constructed, man-made, intentional. Inside lay a metal box about the size of a shoebox. Heart-racing, Eliza pried up another plank to reach it. The box was sealed with a simple latch, no lock. She lifted it out, surprised by its weight, and placed it on the desk beside the magnifying glass and journal fragments. What is that? Kai asked from the doorway, curiosity overcoming caution. I think, Eliza said slowly. This is why Dr. Henderson came here in the first place. She opened the latch. The metal box's hinges protested as Eliza opened the lid. Inside, nestled in what appeared to be an old cloth, lay several items. A collection of black and white photographs, a small leather pouch, and a palm-sized stone tablet. Eliza lifted out the photographs first. They showed a group of men in expedition gear, khaki clothing, wide-brimmed hats, standing before what appeared to be stone ruins, barely visible through dense vegetation. In one photo, a tall, bearded man with intense eyes pointed to markings on a stone wall. The back of the photo bore faded handwriting. Temple site, day 12. James with initial findings. James Henderson, she presumed. The other photos documented various angles of the ruins, close-ups of strange markings, and the expedition team making camp. What is all that? Kai asked, his curiosity finally drawing him a few steps inside the hut. Eliza spread the photos on the desk. Dr. Henderson was studying some kind of ruins in the jungle. Kai peered at the images, his expression changing from curiosity to concern. He picked up one photo, examined it closely, then set it down quickly as if it had burned him. You know this place? Eliza asked. Old stories. Not good stories? He backed toward the door. It's getting late. We should return to village before dark. I'm staying, Eliza said. The resolve in her voice surprised even her. The hut is not safe at night. I have supplies. A solar lamp? I'll be fine. Seeing his distress, she added, just for tonight. I need to assess the repairs needed. Kai reluctantly agreed to return in the morning, warning her again about the jungle at night before departing. His motorbike's growl faded quickly, leaving Eliza in profound silence, broken only by the chorus of insects and distant bird calls. As the afternoon light waned, she continued exploring the box's contents. The leather pouch contained a collection of pencil sketches, detailed drawings of the stone markings from the photos, meticulously labeled with notes and measurements. Henderson had been thorough in his documentation. The stone tablet was the most fascinating item. About the size of a palm, it was made of a dark material that didn't quite look like any stone she recognized. Its surface was covered with geometric patterns and unfamiliar symbols that seemed to form a cohesive system, perhaps mathematical or astronomical. The craftsmanship was extraordinary, the lines precise and deliberate, as if machine-cut rather than hand-carved. With her architect's sensibility for design, Eliza recognized the patterns held meaning, though she couldn't decipher it. She was reminded of the precise measurements and ratios in classical architecture. The golden ratio, perfect proportions that spoke to something universal. As darkness fell, Eliza set up her solar lamp and camping gear. The hut took on an eerie quality in the artificial light, shadows dancing across the walls with each movement. She returned her attention to the anomalous section of flooring, using her toolkit. She systematically removed several more planks, revealing a space approximately 6 feet square and 2 feet deep, a hidden compartment deliberately built between the floor and the ground beneath. The sides were lined with wood to prevent soil intrusion. The box had occupied only a small portion of the space. The compartment's bottom was covered with a layer of oilcloth, protecting whatever had been stored there from the jungle's moisture. Eliza carefully lifted this layer, revealing a surface etched with the same patterns as the stone tablet, but on a larger scale. "What were you hiding, Dr. Henderson?" she murmured. She traced the patterns with her fingertips. Certain elements matched the stone tablet exactly, while others continued beyond, suggesting the tablet might be a fragment of a larger whole. The precision of the etching was remarkable for something presumably created decades ago in this remote location. A sudden noise outside, the crack of a branch, made Eliza freeze. She waited, listening intently, but heard nothing beyond the normal nighttime jungle sounds. Still, the interruption left her uneasy. She replaced the oilcloth and gathered the most important finds, the photos, sketches, and stone tablet, into her backpack. The rest, she returned to the metal box and placed it in a corner of the hut. After covering the exposed compartment with a tarp from her supplies, she prepared for sleep, setting up her camping mat a safe distance from the opening in the floor. As she lay in the darkness, the solar lamp now dimmed to conserve power, Eliza found herself thinking of Henderson's eyes in the photograph, the intensity, the excitement of discovery. Had he found something significant in those ruins? Something that explained the villagers' unease about this place. Outside, the jungle's nighttime symphony reached a crescendo. Within it, Eliza could have sworn she heard footsteps circling the hut, though when she sat up to listen more carefully, there was nothing beyond the normal sounds of the wild, nothing human. At least, morning arrived with a cacophony of birdsong and the distant rumble of Kai's motorbike. Eliza had slept fitfully, waking at every unfamiliar sound, her dreams filled with stone patterns that seemed to shift and rearrange themselves. She was already packed and waiting on the porch when Kai arrived. His eyebrows rose at her disheveled appearance. "Bad night?" "Interesting night," she corrected, securing her backpack. "I need to ask some questions in the village." Kai's expression closed. "About the photos?" "About Henderson. About whatever he found out here." The journey back to Tanjung passed in silence. Once there, Eliza freshened up at Mrs. Sinter's before heading to the village's small cafe, a wooden structure with an open front and plastic tables spilling onto the dirt road. Several locals nursed coffee or tea, conversation stopping as she entered. Eliza ordered coffee and approached an older man who had been in one of the expedition photos, though decades younger then. His weathered face registered recognition, then caution. "Excuse me," she began. "I'm staying in the Henderson hut." He stood abruptly, nearly knocking over his chair, and walked out without a word. Others followed, leaving her alone with the bewildered cafe owner. "What happened with Henderson?" she asked him. The man shook his head. "Not my story to tell." Outside, Eliza found Kai waiting. "That went well," she said dryly. "You cannot ask directly," he advised. "Too many bad memories." "Then help me translate. I need to understand what I found." Kai hesitated, then nodded. "There is someone who might talk. Come." He led her through the village to a small house set apart from the others. An elderly woman sat on the porch, her fingers working nimbly at a weaving, despite eyes clouded with cataracts. "Rosa was young when Henderson came," Kai explained quietly. "She helped his team as translator." Rosa looked up at their approach, head tilted as if listening intently. Around her neck hung a tarnished silver amulet on a leather cord. Even from a distance, Eliza could see it bore symbols similar to those on the stone tablet. "You stay in his house," Rosa said in accented English before they could speak. "You find his things." "Yes," Eliza admitted, taking a seat on the porch step when Rosa gestured. "I found photos of ruins, and a stone with markings." Rosa's fingers stilled on her weaving. You should go home, American woman. Some knowledge is dangerous. What knowledge? What did Henderson find? The old woman's fingers moved to the amulet at her throat, tracing its patterns. The old temple. From before time. Before what time? Before people, Rosa said simply. Before us. The old ones built it. Kai shifted uncomfortably beside Eliza. She means the original people of this region. Before recorded history, Rosa shook her head sharply. Not people, different. They came from sky. Eliza glanced at Kai, who shrugged apologetically. Our legends say star people built temples in the deep jungle. Just stories to scare children. Not stories, Rosa insisted. My grandmother's grandmother saw the temple glow at night. Many have seen the lights over centuries. And Henderson found this temple? Eliza asked. Found again what should stay lost, Rosa corrected. The British team, they disturbed things. Took things, tried to understand writings. Her clouded eyes seemed to look through Eliza. Only 5 returned from 12 who went. A chill ran through Eliza despite the tropical heat. What happened to the others? Some say accident. Some say jungle. I say the temple protects itself. Rosa's fingers worried at her amulet. This protects our people, passed down from the time of guardians. Eliza leaned closer to examine the amulet. The symbols were unmistakably the same as those on the tablet and the compartment floor. The village was founded to watch over the temple, Rosa continued, to make sure no one finds it. Henderson broke our trust. Her voice hardened. He convinced young men to guide him with promises of knowledge, money. After those who survived never spoke of what they saw. Can you tell me where this temple is? Eliza asked. Rosa's face darkened. You are like him, curious, stubborn. She turned to Kai, speaking rapidly in their language. Kai responded, his tone placating. The conversation grew heated. What's she saying? Eliza interrupted. She says I must not help you find the temple. Kai translated reluctantly. She says she sees the same hunger in your eyes that Henderson had. Rosa stood suddenly, her weaving dropping to the floor. Some things buried should stay buried, she said in English, her voice clear and strong. Go home, architect, before you find what you seek. She disappeared into her house, leaving Eliza and Kai alone on the porch. How did she know I'm an architect? Eliza whispered. I never told anyone here. Back at the hut, Eliza spread Henderson's photographs across the desk, trying to make sense of Rosa's warnings. The encounter had left her unsettled, but more determined than ever to understand what had happened here. My grandfather was with Henderson's team, Kai said quietly from the doorway. He hadn't entered the hut since their return, hovering at the threshold as if invisible barriers kept him out. Eliza looked up sharply. You never mentioned that. Not something we speak of. Kai's eyes were fixed on the ground. He was one of the 5 who returned. What did he tell you about it? Almost nothing. He forbade us to enter the deep jungle. When I was young, he caught me with a friend heading toward the temple area. He beat me, the only time he ever raised his hand to me. Kai finally met her gaze. That night he cried and begged me never to go there. Eliza gestured to the desk. Will you at least look at what I've found? Maybe you'd recognize something. After a moment's hesitation, Kai stepped inside. His discomfort was palpable as he examined the photographs and the stone tablet. These symbols, he said, tracing them without touching the tablet. They're on the temple walls. And here, he pointed to a photo of a stone doorway. This is the entrance. My grandfather described it once when he had fever dreams. Eliza returned to the hidden compartment, removing more floorboards to fully expose it. There must be more here. Together they carefully emptied the space, finding several sealed metal containers. One held surveying equipment. Another contained film canisters, the film long degraded. The third, smallest container was sealed with wax around its edges. Eliza broke the seal. Inside, wrapped in oilcloth and remarkably well preserved, was a leather-bound journal, far more intact than the fragments she'd found earlier. Henderson's field journal, she breathed, carefully opening it. The early entries were methodical and scientific, documenting the expedition's progress with precise data and coordinates. Henderson's handwriting was neat, his observations detailed, local flora, geographical features. Interviews with guides. May 3rd, 1962. Located structure approximately 18 km NW of village. Initial assessment confirms pre-Holocene construction. Material composition defies conventional dating methods, not stone as we understand it. May 7th. Temple entrance located beneath root system of massive banyan. Remarkable preservation suggests non-organic building material. Local guides increasingly agitated. Ramirez believes their folklore contains grains of truth about temple origins. As the entries progressed, Henderson's scientific detachment gave way to growing excitement, then obsession. His handwriting became more hurried, his observations interspersed with personal reflections. May 19th. Breakthrough. Inner chamber contains what can only be described as a control panel, not primitive religious artifact as Williams insists. The mathematical precision, the metallic elements within the structure, this is technology, not mysticism. Kai peered over her shoulder. Control panel. Like machine? Sounds like he thought so. Eliza continued reading, finding Henderson's notes increasingly erratic. May 23rd. 3 guides deserted overnight. Can't blame them. The lights in the inner chamber responded to our presence today. Sequential illumination of embedded crystals when Martinez approached the central altar. No visible power source. What we've discovered here will revolutionize our understanding of human prehistory, or perhaps prove humans weren't the first advanced civilization on Earth. The final entries were disturbing. The writing almost frenzied. May 29th, Williams. Jen and Ramirez missing since yesterday's incident. Search parties found nothing. The temple's energy field seems to be expanding. Equipment malfunctioning. Multiple compass needles pointing to inner chamber rather than north. June 2nd. The symbols are in my dreams now. I understand fragments of the language without knowing how. The central mechanism requires a key. The tablet is part of it. I've removed it for study. God help me, I think the temple is alive in some way, aware of us. The final entry was dated June 5th, 1962. Evacuating remaining team members today. Too dangerous to continue without proper containment protocols. Something was awakened when we removed the tablet. I hear it calling. Must secure findings and return with proper equipment. The potential applications of this technology are limitless if we can control it. Eliza closed the journal, her mind racing. He never came back. No, Kai confirmed. The 5 survivors returned to the village half-starved, refusing to speak of what happened. Henderson arranged their transport to the mainland, promised to return, then vanished. My grandfather said the British scientist was a broken man by then, always looking over his shoulder, muttering about being followed. By what? Eliza asked. Kai's voice dropped to a whisper. By whatever came through when they opened the door. You're actually considering going there. Kai stood in the center of the hut, incredulity written across his features. Eliza carefully repackaged Henderson's journal and the stone tablet. 3 days had passed since their discovery. 3 days of poring over the journal entries, cross-referencing them with the tablet's symbols, and creating meticulous copies of Henderson's sketches and notes. I'm not just considering it, she said. I'm going, tomorrow. After everything I've told you? After reading how it drove Henderson to madness? Because of those things, Eliza countered. Something extraordinary is out there, Kai. Something that defies conventional explanation. That doesn't mean it should be found. Eliza paused in her preparations. Look, I understand your concern, but I'm just going to observe, document. I won't disturb anything. That's what they all say. Kai's voice held a bitter edge. Henderson said the same. I'm not Henderson. No. He studied her with unexpected intensity. You're more dangerous. He was just a botanist who stumbled onto something beyond his understanding. You're an architect. You understand structures, systems. You might actually comprehend what you see. His words gave her pause. Was that a compliment or a warning? I need a guide, she said finally. No one will take you. You could. Kai laughed without humor. My grandfather would rise from his grave to stop me. Your grandfather isn't here. Eliza met his gaze steadily. But you are. And you're curious too. I see it in your eyes when we discuss the temple. The silence between them stretched, charged with unspoken thoughts. I can pay well, she added. It's not about money. Then what is it about? Kai moved to the doorway, staring out into the jungle. Some knowledge changes you forever, Eliza. It cannot be unlearned. He turned back to her. But you will go with or without me, yes? Yes, he nodded, resignation in his posture. Then I will take you. But not alone. My cousin Niran will come too. He knows jungle medicine if we need it. The next morning dawned misty and eerily quiet. Eliza waited at the edge of the village with 3 days' worth of supplies packed efficiently in her backpack. The weight of Henderson's journal and the stone tablet pressed against her back. She couldn't risk leaving them behind. Kai arrived with a slender young man who shared his high cheekbones and watchful eyes. Niran nodded a greeting but said nothing. Both men carried minimal packs, and Eliza noticed wore Rosa's silver amulets around their necks. For protection, Kai explained, noticing her gaze. He reached into his pack and withdrew a weathered machete in a leather sheath. The handle was distinctive, wrapped in aged leather bindings with copper wire woven through in a pattern reminiscent of the temple symbols. My grandfather's, he said quietly. He used it on Henderson's expedition. Said it saved his life more than once. He offered it to her. You should carry it. The gesture's significance wasn't lost on Eliza. She accepted it with appropriate gravity. They set off as the village stirred to life, following no trail that Eliza could discern. Kai led, Eliza followed, and Niran brought up the rear, occasionally making soft clicking sounds that Kai explained were signals to ward off snakes and notify larger animals of their presence. The jungle thickened as they progressed, the vegetation changing subtly. Eliza noticed fewer flowering plants, more ferns and fungi, species that seemed more primitive. The trees grew larger, their canopies blocking most direct sunlight. By midday, the air had become noticeably heavier, filled with unfamiliar scents, earthier, mustier than the jungle around the hut. When they stopped to rest, Eliza consulted Henderson's journal, confirming they were following his route. We're close to his first camp, she told Kai, who nodded without enthusiasm. We make our camp before dark, he said. Not good to be moving at night, especially here. As afternoon waned, they reached a small clearing beside a narrow stream. The remains of a stone fire ring confirmed others had camped here before. Henderson, Eliza asked, examining the weathered stones. Much older. Niran spoke for the first time, his English heavily accented. Village hunters used this place generations ago. Before the temple was forbidden, they established camp efficiently. As darkness fell, Kai built a small fire, while Niran set up a perimeter of sorts, hanging small bundles of dried herbs from branches surrounding their site. Traditional protection, Kai explained when Eliza raised an eyebrow. Humor him. Humor me. After a simple meal, they sat in silence, listening to the jungle's nocturnal awakening. Strange calls echoed through the trees. Not quite bird, not quite mammal. Occasionally, something large moved in the underbrush nearby. Tomorrow we reach the temple zone, Kai said finally. Last chance to turn back. Eliza's hand moved to the machete at her side. Not a chance. That night she dreamed of symbols that moved like living things, rearranging themselves into patterns that almost, but never quite, made sense. She woke before dawn, drenched in sweat despite the cool air, with a single certainty they were being watched. They broke camp before sunrise, eating a cold breakfast in silence. The jungle felt different this morning, the usual cacophony of birds and insects replaced by an expectant hush. Even the air seemed thicker, more resistant to their passage. The jungle changes as we get closer, Kai explained, noticing Eliza's puzzled expression. Plants, animals, they avoid the temple zone. My grandfather called it the quiet place. By mid-morning, they reached a massive banyan tree, its aerial roots forming a cathedral-like structure that dwarfed them. Eliza recognized it immediately from Henderson's photographs. The entrance should be beneath the central root system, she said. Consulting the journal, Niran hung back, fingering his amulet and muttering what sounded like prayers. Kai moved forward reluctantly, machete in hand. Though there was surprisingly little undergrowth to clear. Nothing grows too close, he noted. The root system had expanded in the decades since Henderson's expedition, partially obscuring what lay beneath. Working together, Kai and Eliza cleared away enough vegetation to reveal a structure that made her breath catch. It wasn't stone, as she'd expected, but something else. A material that resembled polished obsidian, but with subtle, shifting colors beneath its surface. The entrance was a perfect arch, its precision impossible for primitive tools. No mortar lines, no seams, as if the entire doorway had been molded from a single piece. "My God," Eliza whispered, running her fingers over the surface. "This isn't stone. It's not any building material I've ever seen." The doorway was sealed by what appeared to be a solid slab of the same material. Round its edges ran a series of the now familiar symbols, precisely matching those on the stone tablet and Rosa's amulet. Henderson's notes mentioned a locking mechanism, Eliza said, examining the doorway carefully. Something that responded to the tablet. She removed the stone tablet from her pack. In the strange half-light beneath the banyan, its engraving seemed to shift subtly, catching non-existent light sources. Perhaps it fits somewhere, Kai suggested. Though he made no move to touch it, Eliza examined the door frame, finding a slight depression that approximated the tablet's dimensions. Here, when she placed the tablet into the depression, nothing happened. She frowned, rotating it, trying different orientations. Henderson mentioned alignment was crucial, she murmured, checking the journal again. On her fourth attempt, with the tablet rotated to match the orientation of symbols on the doorframe, a faint click echoed through the structure. The tablet's engravings illuminated with a soft blue glow, sending patterns of light across the obsidian-like surface. Niran gasped and backed away, making signs of protection. The door itself remained sealed, but a small compartment opened in the frame beside the tablet. Inside lay a crystalline rod about a foot long, its ends capped with the same black material as the doorway. When Eliza carefully extracted it, it seemed to respond to her touch, a subtle illumination flowing through its transparent length. "What is it?" Kai asked, his voice hushed. "I don't know," Eliza admitted. "But it's not ancient technology as we understand it. This is something else entirely." The rod's weight was odd, lighter than glass, but with a solid presence. No seams or joins were visible between the crystalline section and the end caps. "Henderson didn't mention this," she said, consulting the journal again. "Perhaps he never found it," Kai suggested. Or he did. "And that's what changed everything," Eliza finished. Experimentally, she touched one end of the rod to the tablet. The reaction was immediate. Both objects pulsed with blue light, and a series of symbols illuminated along the doorway in sequence. With a sound like escaping air, the sealed entrance began to recede into the ground, revealing a dark passage beyond. Niran broke into rapid speech, backing away toward the jungle. "He says he will wait here," Kai translated. "He will not enter." He swallowed visibly. "I cannot enter either, Eliza. My promise to my grandfather. I will wait with Niran," Eliza understood. "I won't go far. Just enough to document what's inside." She switched on her headlamp, its beam seeming feeble against the absolute darkness of the passage. The crystalline rod continued to emit its soft glow, somehow more reassuring than the harsh electric light. "1 hour," Kai said firmly. "If you are not back, we—" He didn't finish the thought. 1 hour, she agreed. With the rod in one hand and her camera in the other, Eliza stepped through the doorway. The passage beyond sloped gently downward, its walls made of the same seamless material as the entrance. The air inside was cool and dry, carrying a faint metallic scent. The floor was smooth beneath her boots, unmarked by the passage of time or previous visitors. Her headlamp revealed that the passage extended about 30 feet before opening into a larger chamber. The silence was absolute. No dripping water, no sounds of insects or animals, not even the echo of her own footsteps. It was, she realized with growing wonder, a perfectly preserved environment, untouched by centuries of jungle growth, untouched perhaps by millennia. Whatever waited in that chamber ahead had been sealed away, protected, preserved for a purpose. And she, Eliza Morgan, was about to be the first human in generations to discover what that purpose was. The corridor opened into a vast circular chamber that defied all logic. Eliza's headlamp couldn't reach the ceiling, lost in darkness above. The walls curved in a perfect circle, at least 60 feet in diameter, made of the same seamless material as the entrance. But what stole her breath was the floor, a massive circular platform with intricate patterns etched into its surface. The designs were geometric yet organic, flowing in concentric circles that seemed to pulse with subtle energy under her light. At the chamber's center stood a raised dais with a depression that looked sized for the crystalline rod. Henderson's journal had described this room, but his words hadn't captured its otherworldly perfection. No tool marks marred the surfaces. No joints or seams interrupted the patterns. The engineering required to create such a space was beyond anything in the archaeological record. Eliza circled the chamber slowly, documenting everything with her camera. Along the walls, at regular intervals, stood alcoves containing objects of the same crystalline material as the rod, though of varying shapes and sizes. In one alcove, she found what appeared to be Henderson's makeshift camp, rotted canvas, rusted equipment, and a leather satchel, partially buried under fallen debris. The satchel contained notebooks similar to the journal she'd found, but these were badly damaged by moisture and time. Only fragments remained legible, responds to human touch. Field measurements exceed equipment capacity. Martinez experienced severe headaches after prolonged exposure. A notation on one page caught her attention. Central platform activates with rod placement. Full activation requires correct sequence. Eliza approached the central dais cautiously. The depression matched the dimensions of the rod perfectly. She hesitated, recalling Henderson's warnings about awakening something. But scientific curiosity, the architect's need to understand this impossible structure, overrode caution. Just documentation, she reminded herself. Positioning her camera to record whatever happened, she placed the crystalline rod into the depression. For a breathless moment, nothing happened. Then a soft hum filled the chamber, more felt than heard. The patterns in the floor illuminated with the same blue glow as the tablet and rod, tracing the concentric designs outward from the center. The light reached the chamber walls, activating similar patterns previously invisible in the darkness. Above the dais, the air shimmered and coalesced into a three-dimensional projection, a star map unlike any Eliza had seen. Unfamiliar constellations rotated slowly in perfect holographic detail. Certain stars were connected by lines of light, forming a network across the projection. One particular star at the network's edge pulsed with greater intensity. "My God," Eliza whispered, her voice echoing in the chamber. "This isn't primitive. This isn't even ancient technology as we understand it." The holographic display shifted as if responding to her voice, zooming toward the pulsing star. It expanded to show a solar system with multiple planets. One planet, the third from its sun, was highlighted, rotating to display land masses that didn't match any Earth configuration Eliza recognized. She reached out instinctively, her fingers passing through the hologram. The display reacted, zooming closer to show a specific region on the planet's surface. A structure identical to the temple appeared in the projection, connecting to other similar structures across the planet's surface with lines of light, a network of temples, a global system of some kind. It's a map, she realized. Not just of stars, but of whatever civilization built this. The implications staggered her. This wasn't merely evidence of an advanced prehistoric Earth culture. This suggested something far more extraordinary. The star system displayed wasn't our own. The planet wasn't Earth. Eliza fumbled for Henderson's journal, finding his final entries. Not visitors from other lands, but visitors from other worlds. The temple is both record and beacon. They left these structures across Earth, mirroring the network on their home world, waiting to be rediscovered when humanity was ready, or perhaps waiting to be reactivated. The hologram shifted again, displaying a sequence of symbols flowing around the star map. Eliza recognized them as the same writing system from the tablet and door, but animated, changing, as if conveying a message she couldn't comprehend. A sudden noise behind her made her turn. The entrance to the chamber remained empty, but she could have sworn she heard footsteps. Her watch showed she'd been inside for 40 minutes. Kai would be growing anxious. She quickly gathered her camera and Henderson's remaining papers, reluctant to leave, yet knowing she needed more equipment, more expertise to properly document this discovery. As she reached for the rod to remove it from the dais, the hologram pulsed brightly. The sequence of symbols accelerated, repeating a particular pattern with increasing urgency. Was it a warning? Instructions? A response to her presence? The chamber's hum intensified, vibrations running through the floor and walls. Something was changing, activating further, beyond what Henderson's team had witnessed. Eliza hesitated, then decisively pulled the rod from its setting. The hologram collapsed instantly, the chamber's illumination fading but not disappearing entirely. A residual glow remained in the floor patterns, as if the system had entered a standby mode rather than shutting down completely. As she hurried back up the corridor toward daylight and her waiting guides, Eliza couldn't shake the sensation that the temple had recognized her, had responded specifically to her presence in ways it hadn't for Henderson. And somewhere in the darkness behind her, something was stirring after a very long sleep. Kai's relief was palpable when Eliza emerged from the temple entrance. "We felt the ground shake," he said, eyes scanning her for signs of injury. "What happened in there?" Eliza struggled to find words that could convey what she'd witnessed. "It's not what anyone would expect. The technology inside, it's beyond anything that should exist in an ancient structure." Niran spoke rapidly to Kai in their language, gesturing at the temple entrance, where the black door remained partially receded into the ground. "He says we should leave immediately," Kai translated. "The temple is awakening. It hasn't been this active in generations." "Active?" Eliza asked. Kai pointed to the surrounding vegetation. What had been still and silent when they arrived now swayed gently, though no breeze stirred the air. The massive banyan's aerial roots seemed to flex and shift, millimeter by millimeter, like slow-motion tentacles. "The temple affects everything around it," Kai explained. "When it's dormant, the jungle avoids it. When it's active..." A distant rumble interrupted him, like thunder beneath their feet rather than above. Niran was already gathering his pack, his movements urgent. "We go," Kai said firmly. "Now." They traveled back toward the village in tense silence, making the return journey in half the time of their outward trek. Twice they heard the strange rumbling behind them. Each time, Niran increased their pace. As they approached Tanjung's outskirts, they found an unusual scene. Villagers had gathered in the central square, their faces grim. At their center stood Rosa and a tall, elderly man Eliza hadn't seen before. He leaned on an ornately carved wooden staff, topped with stylized animal figures and inlaid with metal symbols that matched the temple patterns. The crowd parted silently as they entered the square. Hostility radiated from the gathered villagers, directed primarily at Eliza. "The chief has called judgment," Kai whispered. "They know we went to the temple." The elderly man, the chief, stepped forward, his staff striking the ground with each step, the metal inlays catching the afternoon sun. "You have awakened what sleeps," he said in surprisingly clear English. "You were warned, yet you went." "I didn't disturb anything," Eliza replied. "I only observed, documented." Rosa moved to the chief's side. "The temple has been stirring since you arrived. Now it quickens. We felt its tremors reach the village. For the first time in 50 years, murmurs rippled through the crowd. Several villagers displayed protective amulets similar to Rosa's, while others made warding gestures. "I found a chamber with a star map," Eliza explained, hoping knowledge would diffuse hostility. "It showed another world, another star system. Whoever built the temple wasn't from Earth. This revelation, intended to inspire wonder, instead deepened the villagers' fear. The chief raised his staff, silencing the crowd's growing agitation. "You speak of what our ancestors always knew," he said. "The old ones came from beyond the sky. They built the temple as a doorway between worlds." A doorway? Eliza's mind raced, connecting this to Henderson's final notes. "You mean literally? A portal of some kind?" Rosa nodded gravely. "When the stars align in certain patterns, the doorway can open. The old ones promised to return through it when humanity was ready for their knowledge. But some doorways should remain closed," the chief continued. "The temple guardians, my ancestors, protected it from those who would open it too soon. Like Henderson's expedition," Eliza said. "Understanding dawning. They disturbed the inner mechanism," Rosa confirmed. "Removed key components. The portal partially activated, creating a tear. Something came through," the chief said, his voice dropping. "Not the old ones, but something else. Something that had been waiting, watching from the spaces between worlds." A chill ran through Eliza, despite the tropical heat. "What happened to it?" "The survivors sealed the temple as best they could. The visitor could not exist fully in our world without the portal's complete activation. It has remained dormant, trapped between realms, waiting for someone to finish what Henderson started." The implications staggered her. "And you think I've—" "The tremors grow stronger," the chief interrupted. "The temple responds to you in ways it never did to others. Even now it calls to you. Can you not feel it?" To her shock, Eliza realized she could, a subtle pull at the edge of her consciousness, like a half-heard melody drawing her back toward the jungle. The chief raised his staff, the carved symbols briefly catching the sunlight with an unnatural gleam. "The council has decided. You will leave Tanjung tomorrow. The tablet and rod must remain here with the rightful guardians. And if I refuse?" Eliza asked, though she already knew the answer. "Then we cannot protect you from what follows," the chief said simply. "The visitor has waited decades. It has learned patience. It has learned to influence dreams, thoughts, desires. Why do you think you found the hut listing? Why do you think the price was one you could not resist?" Rosa's clouded eyes seemed to see through her. "It called you here, architect. It has been calling you since the moment Henderson died." Sleep eluded Eliza that night. The chief's words echoed in her mind as she lay on her narrow bed at Mrs. Sinter's, staring at the ceiling. Had something really been manipulating her? The bargain price of the hut, her inexplicable compulsion to abandon her career, the dreams that had plagued her since arrival, all orchestrated by some entity trapped between dimensions. It seemed absurd. Yet she couldn't dismiss the evidence of the temple's technology, far too advanced for any ancient Earth civilization. By morning, she'd made her decision. She needed expertise beyond her own. Mrs. Sinter's establishment offered the village's only satellite internet connection, unreliable and excruciatingly slow. Eliza drafted a careful email to Professor Wei Liu at Cambridge, her former mentor and a leading expert in anomalous archaeological sites. She attached several of her photographs from the temple chamber, compressed to transmit over the tenuous connection. To her surprise, Liu responded within hours. "Eliza, drop everything. Your images match my theoretical reconstructions of pre-Sumerian influence sites. Booking flight immediately. Coordinates?" 3 days later, Eliza waited at the small airstrip as a chartered plane touched down. Professor Liu emerged, a slight man in his 60s with piercing eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. Despite the journey, he moved with the energy of someone half his age. "My dear Eliza," he exclaimed, embracing her. "When your email arrived, well, you've made an old academic's decade, perhaps his century." From his battered leather satchel, he withdrew a carefully wrapped package. "I brought something you must see." At Mrs. Sinter's, Liu unwrapped the object, a clay tablet protected in a custom preservation case. Pre-Sumerian, approximately 10,000 BCE, found in the Zagros Mountains in 1962. Eliza studied the tablet, her breath catching. Though weathered by millennia, the symbols etched into its surface were unmistakably related to those in the temple. The similarities are undeniable, Liu said, eyes gleaming. I've spent my career documenting these symbols across disparate ancient cultures. Göbekli Tepe, early Indus Valley sites, certain Olmec artifacts, all separated by vast distances, yet sharing identical mathematical patterns impossible to explain as coincidental parallel development. He produced a dog-eared journal. In my publication from last year, the archaeological community dismissed it as speculation, of course. The journal's title read, Celestial Instructors, Evidence for Prehistoric Contact and Knowledge Transfer. You believe early human civilizations were influenced by visitors? Eliza said slowly. I believed, Liu corrected. Now, thanks to your discovery, I know. He leaned forward. Tell me everything. Eliza recounted her experiences in detail, the hidden compartment, the stone tablet, the temple's technology, and finally, the village chief's warnings. Fascinating, Liu murmured. A portal between worlds. It aligns perfectly with certain Sumerian texts describing gates to the stars, through which sky gods traveled. The villagers believe something malevolent partially came through when Henderson's team disrupted the mechanism, Eliza said. They think it's been influencing events, influencing me. Liu considered this, tapping his fingers against the clay tablet's case. Many traditions speak of entities existing between conventional dimensions. The Mesopotamians called them messengers of the void. The Chinese, watchers between spaces. Modern physicists theorize about higher dimensions intersecting with our own. You think it could be real? I think we're dealing with technology so advanced it appears supernatural. Arthur C. Clarke's third law. Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. Liu's eyes gleamed with excitement. We must document everything before the temple is sealed again. The village elders have ordered me to leave tomorrow, Eliza said. They want the artifacts returned, Liu waved dismissively. Academic discoveries of this magnitude can't be suppressed by superstition. We need a proper research team. Their concerns seem more than superstitious, Eliza countered, unsettled by his casual dismissal. A knock interrupted them. Kai stood in the doorway, his expression guarded. The council requests your presence, he said. Both of you. In the village square they found the chief and council elders assembled. The chief's staff stood planted in the earth before him, its metal inlays catching the afternoon sun. We have considered further, he announced without preamble. Professor Liu's arrival was anticipated. Liu raised an eyebrow at this, but remained silent. The temple stirs more strongly, the chief continued. Dreams trouble our people. The visitor's influence grows. We fear what might emerge if the doorway opens fully. Then let us help, Liu suggested. With proper documentation and study. No outsider has fully understood the temple's purpose, Rosa interrupted. Not in all the generations my family has guarded it. Then explain it to us, Eliza challenged. The elders exchanged glances. Finally the chief nodded. The old ones built the temple network as gifts, repositories of knowledge for humanity when we were ready. But they built safeguards. The temples respond only to those with specific attunement. Genetic markers, perhaps, Liu murmured. Fascinating. Henderson's team damaged the safeguards, the chief continued. Created a breach. Now something waits on the other side, something that was not meant to come through. He fixed Eliza with his penetrating gaze. You have a choice, architect. Help us reseal the temple properly, or leave, taking the consequences of your actions with you. And those consequences would be, Liu asked. Rosa's clouded eyes seemed to focus directly on them. The visitor has waited decades. It will follow her now, wherever she goes. Its influence will grow, reaching through her to others. Through your research, Professor. Through your photographs and findings. We can protect the temple, the chief said. We cannot protect the world beyond our village if you take what you've learned and leave. The weight of decision settled on Eliza's shoulders, heavier than any architectural project she'd ever undertaken. Her professional instincts urged documentation, preservation of this unprecedented discovery. Yet something deeper, more primal, responded to the elder's warnings. What would resealing the temple involve? She asked finally. Eliza woke to the distant sound of helicopter rotors. She'd slept fitfully at the hut after yesterday's temple exploration, her dreams filled with flowing silver patterns and whispers just beyond comprehension. For a moment, she thought the helicopter was part of her dreams, until Kai burst through the doorway, breathless. "People coming," he said. "Not tourists. Not researchers." She joined him on the porch. A sleek black helicopter circled the village before landing in the clearing near the airstrip. Even from this distance, the aircraft's unmarked exterior and military precision of the landing suggested this wasn't a casual visit. Who would come here? She wondered aloud. Liu appeared from the guest room, hair disheveled but eyes alert. "How did your photographs transmit over the satellite connection?" "Compressed, encrypted. Only to your university email," Eliza said. "Why?" "Because no ordinary archaeological discovery would warrant that." He nodded toward the helicopter. By the time they reached the village, 4 figures had disembarked, 3 men in tactical clothing and a woman in a crisp linen suit despite the humidity. The villagers watched from a distance, suspicion evident in their postures. The woman spotted them approaching and stepped forward, hand extended. "Dr. Morgan? Professor Liu? Diana Vega, Nexus Technologies, Special Projects Division." Eliza didn't take the offered hand. "How do you know our names?" Vega smiled thinly. "Let's just say certain keywords in digital communications trigger our interest. Non-human architecture, star portal, advanced prehistoric technology." She gestured to the men behind her. "My security team and research assistant. We're here to offer assistance with your remarkable discovery. We haven't disclosed our findings publicly," Liu said carefully. "Nexus Technologies specializes in identifying emerging technological paradigms, Professor. We have resources far beyond academic institutions." Vega's smile remained fixed. "Resources we're prepared to offer for exclusive access to what you found." The chief and Rosa approached, positioning themselves beside Eliza and Liu. The chief's face was impassive, but his hand gripped his ceremonial staff tightly. "This is a protected site," he stated. "No outsiders are permitted without council approval." Vega barely glanced at him. "We understand local customs, but this discovery has potential global implications. Nexus is prepared to generously compensate your village for cooperation." From her briefcase, she produced a leather portfolio and handed it to the chief. "A preliminary offer. Infrastructure improvements, medical facilities, educational endowments." The chief didn't open it. "Our heritage is not for sale. Everything has a price," Vega replied coolly. She turned to Eliza. "Dr. Morgan, as the property owner and primary discoverer, you have certain rights. Rights we're prepared to recognize with appropriate compensation." "How exactly did you find us so quickly?" Eliza asked. One of the men, the research assistant, stepped forward, holding a sleek black laptop with an unusual metallic sheen. "We've been monitoring global archaeological anomalies for some time." He opened the device, revealing a display unlike any conventional computer. 3-dimensional, holographic projections similar to, though cruder than, the temple's star map, quantum-encrypted neural interface, he explained, noting their surprise. "Prototype technology. It detected energy fluctuations from this region that match patterns we've been tracking at other sites globally." "Other sites?" Liu asked sharply. "Professor, surely you've theorized there must be more than one such structure," Vega said. "Your own publications suggest a global network." On the laptop's display, a world map appeared with pulsing points of light. One in Southeast Asia, others in South America, Egypt, China. "And beneath the Antarctic ice shelf, we've located 5 confirmed sites and 3 probables," the assistant continued, "all exhibiting similar energy signatures, all recently becoming more active. This is the first with confirmed internal access." The implications struck Eliza like a physical blow. Not just one temple, but a global network, all activating simultaneously. "What exactly does Nexus want with these sites?" she asked, understanding application. Vega's eyes gleamed. The technological principles at work could revolutionize everything from energy production to computing to space travel. Or weapons, Liu suggested quietly. Vega didn't deny it. National security has many facets, Professor. Now, shall we discuss terms for a proper research expedition? The chief stepped forward. There will be no expedition. The temple is being resealed today. That would be inadvisable, Vega said, her tone hardening. This discovery doesn't belong to your village. It belongs to humanity. You mean to Nexus Technologies, Eliza countered. Vega shrugged. We're best positioned to understand and utilize what's been found. Our resources are unmatched. The temple is dangerous, Rosa interjected. There are forces at work beyond your understanding. All the more reason for proper scientific study, Vega replied dismissively. The research assistant suddenly frowned at his laptop display. Dr. Vega, energy readings are spiking. Something's happening at the temple site. Indeed, Eliza could feel it, a subtle vibration through the soles of her feet, a pressure change in the air. In the distance, jungle birds took flight en masse from the direction of the temple. What have you done? The chief demanded, turning to Eliza. Nothing, she insisted. We've been here the whole time. The research assistant's expression grew alarmed. The temple's activation signature just increased tenfold. It's as if what? Vega pressed. As if it's responding to our presence, he said. Or someone else has reached it. The chief's face darkened. The visitor grows stronger. It no longer needs direct access to manifest its influence. Vega looked between them, reassessing. Clearly there's more happening here than initial reports suggested. Dr. Morgan, Professor Liu, we should discuss this privately. There's nothing to discuss, Eliza said firmly. The temple is under the village's protection for good reason. Protection? Vega laughed softly. Dr. Morgan, look around you. This village cannot protect itself, let alone a discovery of this magnitude. Whatever's happening requires resources, expertise, containment protocols. The tremors intensified, subtle but unmistakable. Dogs began barking throughout the village. Children were hurried indoors. You feel that? The chief said to Vega. That is merely the beginning. Proceed with your plans, and you unleash something none of us can control. We need to reach the temple immediately, Eliza said, turning to the chief. Before they do, the tremors had intensified over the past hour. Nexus Technologies' team had retreated to their helicopter, engaged in urgent communications with their headquarters. It wouldn't be long before they made their move. The chief nodded grimly. I will gather the Guardians. Within 30 minutes, their group, Eliza, Liu, Kai, the chief, Rosa, and 3 Guardians, was moving swiftly through the jungle toward the temple. The path seemed to have changed since yesterday, the vegetation growing denser, more twisted, as if deliberately impeding their progress. The temple's influence extends further into our world, Rosa explained, sensing Eliza's confusion. Boundaries are thinning. When they finally reached the massive banyan, they found the temple entrance fully open, the black door completely receded into the ground. The luminous fluid in the visible wall channels pulsed rapidly, its flow erratic. Someone's been here, Kai said, examining the ground. Recent footprints. Nexus must have sent an advance team, Liu suggested. The chief frowned. No, these are not new tracks. They appear fresh, but... He touched the soil, rubbing it between his fingers. These were made decades ago. Henderson, Eliza breathed. Impossible, Liu protested. Time behaves differently near active portals, Rosa said. The past and present bleed together. They proceeded cautiously into the temple. The corridor's illumination had intensified. The blue glow now shot through with rippling patterns of other colors, violets, greens, colors Eliza couldn't quite name. The main chamber had transformed dramatically. The holographic star map had expanded to fill the upper portion of the space, displaying what appeared to be a 3-dimensional map of connections between multiple star systems. The central dais now levitated slightly above the floor, rotating slowly, but most disturbing was what they found beside it, a human skeleton, partially buried under fallen debris, clutching something in its bony hands. Henderson, Liu confirmed, kneeling beside the remains. The clothing fragments match the period. He never left, Eliza realized. He came back after evacuating his team. The chief approached solemnly. The visitor claimed him. From the skeleton's grasp, Liu carefully extracted what it had been holding, an object resembling an ornate kaleidoscope, crafted from the same mysterious material as the temple walls, with crystalline elements similar to the rod. What is it? Eliza asked. A viewer of some kind, the chief said, recognition in his eyes. Ancient legends speak of devices that permitted humans to perceive beyond normal dimensions. Liu held it up cautiously. A tool for communication, perhaps, between our world and theirs? Before anyone could stop him, he raised it to his eye. His reaction was immediate and terrifying. Liu staggered backward, the viewer falling from his grasp as he clutched his head, a strangled cry escaping his lips. Kai caught him before he fell. "Professor, what did you see?" Liu's face had gone ashen, his eyes wide with horror. "It's not empty space between dimensions," he gasped. "It's inhabited, conscious, watching, always watching." Rosa retrieved the fallen viewer, handling it with reverent caution. "The old ones created these to help us understand their realm, but the spaces between what exists there was never meant for human perception." The chief turned to Eliza. "Henderson must have used this, saw something he couldn't comprehend. The visitor found him through this connection, a mind open to its influence, and it's been using that influence ever since," Eliza concluded, reaching through Henderson's discoveries, through his notes, through the temple itself, drawing others here. "Drawing you here," Rosa corrected. "The visitor needs someone who can fully activate the portal." Liu had recovered somewhat, though his hands still trembled. "It makes sense now. The $2 listing that seemed too good to be true. The way you felt compelled to come here despite abandoning everything. The temple's unusual response to your presence. But why me?" Eliza asked. "What makes me different from Henderson or anyone else?" The chief and Rosa exchanged glances. Finally Rosa spoke. "The old ones left genetic markers in certain human bloodlines, descendants of those they taught directly. These individuals have a natural attunement to the temple technology. You can't seriously suggest I'm some kind of descendant of ancient astronauts," Eliza protested. "Not astronauts," the chief corrected. "Teachers, guides, those who believed humanity had potential." Liu had moved to examine the temple wall markings more closely. "Eliza," he called, his voice strange, "look at this section." She joined him, studying the patterns he indicated. Unlike the other symbols, these formed what appeared to be a narrative sequence, pictographs showing tall, elongated figures interacting with smaller human forms. "It's a record of contact," Liu explained. "And look, this repeated symbol appears to be a bloodline marker." He pointed to Henderson's remains. "Check his journal. He must have made the connection too." Among the decayed items scattered around the skeleton, Eliza found a waterproof case containing a final journal. Its last entry, dated 3 days after Henderson had supposedly left the village, read, "The viewer revealed the truth. They're not coming back. They're already here, their essence encoded within us. The temple doesn't open a door to their world. It transforms suitable humans into vessels for their return. God forgive me for what I've awakened." The chamber suddenly shuddered, dust falling from the ceiling. The star map projection flickered, then stabilized on a single system. "Earth's, its beginning," the chief said urgently. "The final activation sequence. The visitor has gained enough influence to initiate it remotely. Can we stop it?" Eliza asked. "Not stop," Rosa said. "Redirect. The portal must open, but we can control what comes through." She held out the dimensional viewer to Eliza. "You must see what Henderson saw, understand what we face. Then make your choice." As Eliza hesitantly reached for the device, the temple trembled again. This time, the sound of helicopter rotors echoed from outside. Nexus Technologies had arrived. The Nexus team burst into the temple chamber, Vega at the lead with her security personnel flanking her. They carried advanced equipment and weapons. Not standard firearms, but devices that hummed with barely contained energy. "Step away from the central platform," Vega ordered. "This site is now under Nexus Technologies' protection." The chief stood his ground. "You have no authority here." "I have every authority." Vega gestured, and her team spread out, securing the perimeter of the chamber. "Dr. Morgan, Professor Liu, you've done remarkable work locating and partially activating this site. Nexus will ensure you receive proper credit in all subsequent publications. This isn't an archaeological dig," Eliza said. "You have no idea what you're dealing with." Vega's smile was cold. "On the contrary, we've been studying these energy signatures for decades. Nexus was founded specifically to locate and harness this technology." The research assistant had connected his quantum laptop to a portable device, now scanning the chamber. "The portal architecture matches our projections," he reported. "Energy readings consistent with Site Alpha in Egypt and Site Delta in Antarctica." Eliza exchanged glances with the chief. They weren't just stumbling into this. They knew exactly what they were looking for. "How long have you known about the temples?" Liu demanded. "Since 1962, Vega replied casually. "When Henderson's final transmissions reached certain interested parties, tragically he perished before extraction." Her gaze fell on the skeleton. "Though I see you've already discovered that." The temple shuddered again, more violently this time. The luminous fluid in the wall channels began flowing faster, converging toward the sealed portal area. "Final sequence initiating," the research assistant announced. "Portal reaching critical threshold." Vega turned to Eliza. "Dr. Morgan, our research indicates you possess the genetic markers necessary for full activation. We'd prefer your willing cooperation, but..." She nodded to her security team, who raised their weapons. "We're prepared to proceed regardless." Rosa stepped forward, placing herself between Eliza and the Nexus team. "You fool yourself if you think you can control what comes through. We've prepared containment protocols," Vega assured her. "The entity you call the Visitor isn't the threat you believe. It's simply a different form of consciousness, one that can advance our understanding of multidimensional physics. It killed Henderson," Eliza pointed out. "It's been manipulating events for decades. Unfortunate but inevitable first contact complications," Vega dismissed. "We're better prepared now." The research assistant approached the central dais, examining it with scanning equipment. "We're missing a component," he announced. "The activation key should be here." "Search them," Vega ordered. As the security team moved forward, Rosa raised her hand. From her robes, she withdrew an object Eliza hadn't seen before, a palm-sized crystalline disc that pulsed with inner light, its surface etched with circuitry similar to the temple patterns. "The final key," Rosa said, "protected by my family for generations. Without it, the portal cannot be properly controlled." Vega's expression hardened. "Hand it over." "No," Rosa replied simply. At Vega's nod, one of the security team fired his weapon. Instead of a bullet, a pulse of energy struck near Rosa's feet, a warning shot. "Next one won't miss," Vega said. "The key," the chief raised his staff. "You invite destruction upon us all." "I invite progress," Vega countered. "Advancement, the next evolution of human potential." The temple's trembling intensified. Cracks appeared in the chamber floor as the sealed portal area began to glow with an unnatural light. Not the blue of the temple's normal illumination, but a sickly greenish purple that hurt the eyes to look at directly. "It comes," Rosa whispered. "With or without the key." Eliza felt it, a pressure in her mind far stronger than before, a presence pushing against the boundaries of reality. The dimensional viewer in Rosa's other hand began to glow with the same disturbing light as the portal. "The visitor grows stronger," the chief said urgently. "It feeds on conflict, on fear. Your weapons, your aggression. You're hastening its manifestation." Vega ignored him, focusing on Eliza. "Dr. Morgan, surely you understand what's at stake. This technology could revolutionize every aspect of human civilization. Energy production, transportation, medicine, the applications are limitless. Or it could destroy everything," Eliza countered. "Some doors aren't meant to be opened." All doors are meant to be opened, Vega insisted. That's how humanity progresses. The sickly light from the portal area intensified, taking on an almost physical form, tendrils of energy reaching into the chamber. It breaches the barrier, Rosa cried out. We must act now! She pressed the activation key into Eliza's hand. The disc felt warm, alive somehow, its surface shifting colors as it touched her skin, from pulsing red to a calm blue. The key responds to intent, Rosa explained hurriedly. Your genetic attunement allows you to direct it. You must choose, activate the portal properly, as the old ones intended, allowing controlled knowledge transfer, or seal it completely, cutting off both the visitor and any future contact. Or, Vega interjected, work with us to fully manifest the visitor. Controlled communication with an interdimensional entity would be the greatest scientific achievement in human history. The choice crystallized before Eliza, the weight of decision seeming to compress time itself. The village guardians watched her with solemn trust, Lou with scholarly fascination, Vega with ambitious hunger, and somewhere beyond the thinning veil of reality, something else watched too, patient, ancient, utterly alien. The activation key pulsed in her palm, awaiting direction. Choose, Rosa whispered, as reality itself seemed to hold its breath. The activation key pulsed in Eliza's palm, its surface shifting between colors as if sensing her indecision. The chamber trembled continuously now, dust and small fragments falling from the ceiling. The sickly light from the portal area had coalesced into writhing tendrils that probed the air like searching fingers. We're running out of time, Vega snapped. Choose, Dr. Morgan. Eliza closed her eyes, trying to think clearly despite the mounting pressure in her mind, the visitor's presence growing stronger by the second. Somewhere within that alien consciousness, she sensed an ancient hunger, a desperate need for embodiment after eons of formless existence. I choose neither option, she said finally, opening her eyes. Neither your way nor the Guardians. Before anyone could react, she stepped onto the central dais, activation key in hand. The platform responded immediately, rising slightly higher and beginning to rotate faster. Stop her, Vega ordered. As the security team moved forward, the temple itself seemed to intervene. The luminous fluid in the wall channels surged outward, forming a barrier around the dais. The men's energy weapons discharged harmlessly into it. The pulses absorbed and redirected into the chamber's patterns. At the edge of the dais, Eliza discovered what Henderson had missed or never found, a small recess precisely matching the activation key's dimensions. As she placed the disc into position, the entire central platform illuminated with intricate circuitry patterns that matched her body's position perfectly. Eliza, wait, Liu called out. We don't know what full activation will do. Trust her, Rosa said, restraining the professor. She sees what we cannot. Indeed, something was happening to Eliza's perception. The temple's patterns no longer appeared as mere symbols, but as a complex language she somehow understood intuitively. The star map above had shifted to display what she now recognized as a multidimensional schematic of the portal network. Not just physical locations, but temporal and dimensional. Coordinates. From a previously invisible compartment in the dais, a final object rose, an intricate circlet crafted from the same unknown metal and crystal components as the temple itself. The interface crown, the chief whispered in awe. Spoken of in our oldest legends, but never seen. Vega's expression shifted from anger to covetous wonder. Nexus would give you anything for that technology, anything. Ignoring her, Eliza lifted the circlet. It felt almost weightless, despite its apparent solidity. As she placed it on her head, her consciousness expanded dramatically, suddenly able to perceive the temple's systems as if they were extensions of her own nervous system. Through this enhanced awareness, she finally understood the truth. The temple wasn't just a doorway between worlds, it was a filter, a testing ground. The old ones had created the network not for their return, but to evaluate whether humanity was ready for the knowledge they could provide. The visitor wasn't supposed to come through. It was what the portal system was designed to keep out. "Henderson damaged the filtering mechanism," she announced, her voice resonating strangely in the chamber. "When they removed the components in the wrong sequence, they created a breach in the protection barriers. Through the Crown's interface, Eliza could sense the visitor directly now, a vast, ancient consciousness pressing against the weakened barriers, simultaneously terrifying and pitiful in its desperate hunger. It doesn't want to destroy us," she continued. "It wants to become us, to experience physical reality through our bodies, which is precisely what we hope to facilitate under controlled conditions," Vega insisted. "A symbiotic relationship? There's nothing symbiotic about it," Eliza cut her off. "The host consciousness gets consumed." Henderson realized this too late. Using the Crown's connection, Eliza began redirecting the temple's energy flows, repairing the damaged systems. The portal area fluctuated wildly, the sickly light alternating with the temple's natural blue illumination, as two forces battled for control. "What are you doing?" Lube asked. "Restoring the original programming," Eliza replied, her focus split between physical reality and the multidimensional system she was now manipulating. "The old ones built in a reset protocol," the visitor fought back, pressure building in Eliza's mind until she feared her skull would crack. The tendrils of energy grew more substantial, one lashing out to wrap around a security guard's arm. The man screamed as his flesh began to transform, becoming translucent, revealing shifting geometries beneath his skin. "Containment failure," the research assistant shouted, backing away. "Unknown biological transformation in progress." Vega's cool composure finally cracked. "Shut it down. Shut everything down!" But it was too late for simple solutions. The guard's transformation accelerated, his body elongating, features shifting into something no longer human. His screams changed pitch, becoming harmonics impossible for human vocal cords. "It's manifesting," the chief said grimly, "using him as a vessel." Through the Crown's interface, Eliza redirected more power to the filtering systems, trying to establish a barrier between the partially transformed guard and the rest of the chamber. The effort was exhausting, like trying to dam a river with her bare hands. "I can't hold it back alone," she gasped. Rosa stepped forward fearlessly. "You are not alone. The Guardians carry the Old One's legacy too." She placed her hand on the dais, her amulet glowing in response. The chief and the other Guardians joined her, forming a circle around the platform. Even Kai, overcoming his fear, stepped forward to complete the circle. "Your blood remembers," Rosa told him. "Trust in that memory." As they connected, the temple responded. The blue illumination strengthened, patterns flowing from the Guardian's amulets into the floor design, reinforcing Eliza's efforts. The transformed guard, now barely recognizable as human, lurched toward the portal area, drawn by some unseen force. Through him, the visitor was forcing the doorway open from both sides. "It's now or never," Eliza said, gathering her strength for one final effort. "Whatever happens, get everyone out if this fails." She activated the reset sequence, channeling all the temple's power through the Crown and her own consciousness, creating a feedback loop that sent a surge of energy toward the damaged portal. Reality itself seemed to bend and distort around them as two dimensions fought for supremacy. Morning sunlight filtered through the jungle canopy, dappling the clearing where the temple entrance had once stood. Now only the massive banyan tree remained, its roots sealed seamlessly over the ground, as if the doorway had never existed. Eliza sat on a fallen log, exhaustion etched in every line of her face. 3 days had passed since the confrontation in the temple chamber. 3 days since she'd channeled the reset protocol through the interface crown. Collapsing the portal and sealing the breach between dimensions, the memory remained fragmented, blinding light. Reality twisting upon itself, the transformed guard being pulled back toward the portal as it collapsed. The visitor's final psychic scream had knocked everyone unconscious. When they awoke, the temple entrance had vanished, leaving only the banyan tree standing sentinel. Kai approached, carrying 2 steaming mugs. "Tea," he said simply, handing one to her. "Thank you." She sipped the bitter herbal brew, feeling its warmth spread through her still aching body. "The Nexus team has gone," he reported. "Their helicopter left an hour ago. The village council convinced them nothing remained to study," Eliza nodded. After the portal's collapse, Vega had been strangely subdued, her ambition tempered by what she'd witnessed. The security guard's sacrifice, or transformation, had affected her deeply. And Professor Liu, recovering at Mrs. Sinta's, he speaks of documenting everything, though the chief has convinced him some knowledge is better kept protected. Kai paused. The woman, Vega, gave him her card before leaving, said there might still be a way to work together. "Some people never learn," Eliza murmured. The weight in her pocket seemed to grow heavier at the thought. While the others had been unconscious after the reset, something had appeared before Eliza, a small, luminescent sphere that had emerged from the collapsing portal and floated directly to her hand. She hadn't shown it to anyone, not even the chief or Rosa. Some instinct told her the knowledge seed, she somehow knew that's what it was, had been meant specifically for her. "The village is preparing a ceremony," Kai said, interrupting her thoughts, "to honor what happened, and to formally recognize you. Recognize me as a guardian." His expression was serious. "It's been generations since someone with your level of attunement has been identified. The council believes you were sent to us for a reason." Eliza laughed softly. "I came because I bought a $2 hut online." "Did you?" Kai raised an eyebrow. "Or was that simply the path that led you where you needed to be?" She had no answer for that. The village ceremony was held at sunset. The entire community gathered in the central square, where a bonfire burned brightly. The chief, Rosa, and the other guardians wore traditional garments adorned with symbols matching those from the temple. Eliza was given a simple amulet, similar to Rosa's but newly crafted. "To remind you of your responsibility," the chief explained, "and to protect you should echoes of the visitor linger in your dreams." Professor Liu watched the proceedings with academic interest, making mental notes but respectfully refraining from recording devices. He'd agreed to publish only approved information about their discovery, a general paper on theoretical, interdimensional physics with no mention of the temple's location or exact nature. Some knowledge isn't meant for academic journals, he'd admitted to Eliza that morning. At least, not yet. As the ceremony concluded, Rosa approached Eliza privately. "You haven't shown it to the others," the old woman said. "It wasn't a question." "Shown what?" Eliza asked carefully. Rosa smiled, her clouded eyes somehow seeing what remained hidden. "The seed carries great responsibility, greater than the temple itself. How did you—" "I have guarded such secrets all my life." Rosa touched Eliza's hand gently. "The old ones were wise to choose you. An architect understands how to build gradually with proper foundations." "I don't know what to do with it," Eliza admitted. "You will, when the time comes." Rosa's expression grew distant. "The temples were only their first gift to humanity. The seed is the second. There will be others when we are ready." Later that night, alone in the rebuilt hut, her hut now, properly renovated and structurally sound, Eliza finally removed the knowledge seed from her pocket. In the darkness, it glowed with a soft, pulsating light, responding to her touch with subtle color changes. When she held it to her temple, images flooded her mind. Not the terrifying alien geometries of the visitor's realm, but visions of extraordinary possibilities. Clean energy systems, medical technologies beyond current imagination, sustainable architecture that worked with natural ecosystems rather than against them, knowledge that could transform human civilization, but only if introduced gradually, thoughtfully, with wisdom rather than greed. Eliza understood then why the Old Ones had created the temple network as a test, and why the visitor had been kept out. Some evolutionary steps couldn't be rushed without disastrous consequences. She placed the seed carefully in a small carved box on her bedside table. Tomorrow, she would begin sketching plans for a research center in the village, a place where the Guardian's traditional knowledge could merge with selective scientific advancement. A middle path between Vega's reckless ambition and the Elder's complete isolation. Outside her window, the jungle whispered with nighttime sounds, no longer threatening but familiar, almost comforting. She'd come halfway around the world, seeking escape from her old life, only to find a far greater purpose, all because of a $2 hut with secrets buried beneath its floor.